Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm excited to have two special guests on. We have Whitney Burns and Allison Chávez, and they are the co-chairs for this year's Children's Museum of Houston Ball, and it's one of the best and most fun galas that I go to each year. It's held at a wonderful space called the Corinthian. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And their theme this year is the Noir Ball. So I'm really interested to see how they came up with this theme and, for them to elaborate on what that is for those of you who aren't familiar with that. So with that, Whitney, Allison, welcome. And we're so excited to have you both on as guests today.
Thanks for having us, Rob.
Absolutely. Thanks. So Whitney, I'm going to start and just have the first question directed to you. Can you talk a little bit about what the mission of the Children's Museum Houston is?
Sure. So the mission of the Children's Museum Houston is really to transform communities through innovative, child-centered learning that improves the trajectories of all children. So obviously with the name, you hear Children's Museum Houston. I think the Houston region it has one of the largest child populations in the United States. So the Children's Museum, it's work cut out for it, and really works to help serve and make sure that all children have a safe, fun, and interactive place to learn, whether it's on campus at the museum or through their community programming.
Absolutely. And one thing I appreciate about the museum is even if you're an adult, you feel like a kid in there because there's some really cool interactive stuff. And what I appreciate about the museum is that there's a lot of stuff for STEM, but there's also artistic and creativity. So there really is something for every single child that walks through the doors.
Yeah, it's great to see how many, they have more permanent exhibits, but then the rotating exhibits that come through, it really serves left and right brain. I mean, I think it helps to engage in so many different ways. And I know, my children are different. My sister and I, who have been going to the museum since we were kids, are very different. And there really is something for each type of child, whether they're more, leaning towards science, art, math, engineering, if they're athletic, if they're more quiet, like there's always something for children to learn and engage with. And also, I think it pushes them outside of their comfort zone to explore different things that maybe they wouldn't normally.
That's true, and that's good. And you're able to do that in a free environment. And Allison, did you have anything you wanted to chime in on?
Well, I mean, I grew up Whitney and I are both native Houstonians, and I spent my entire childhood going to the Children's Museum, and it was just a core staple of our, experience growing up. I'm one of four kids, and my mom always knew if she took us, all four of us there would be something for everyone. And, and it has, these opportunities as they're growing up to look forward to things that they can do when they're older. There are certain things that are meant for older kids. And my kids have enjoyed it throughout their toddlerhood and into their pre-adolescence. And we're just so blessed and grateful to have that. But it's that community outreach as well that is truly amazing and impressive. And it's just an entire operation that the museum does somewhat quietly that, if you go there, you don't appreciate the full spectrum of what they're doing outside of the footprint of the museum.
Absolutely. So I have a question for each of you then. So left brain or right brain for each of you. And Allison, feel free to go first. Which do you prefer?
I'm definitely more of an analytical person. I'm a numbers gal and tended to, probably focus more STEM in the past, but as a parent now of three kids, I have to appreciate it all and lean into, my weaknesses as well. So yes, I follow the more STEM side for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Whitney, what about you?
Right-brained. I have tried my hardest to mix in some left, but and Allison and I have been friends since we were in sixth grade, and so we really balance each other well on the left brain, right brain. But yeah, I'm definitely more artistic, emotional, deep feeling, creative, that sort of thing.
Well, and I'm glad we're here talking about this event today because really, you need both of those sides to really have, a successful event. But, before I want to ask, a couple more questions before we dive into the event. And, it's wonderful to hear that you both, probably went there as children together growing up. So What made you each get initially involved with this organization as adults? And Allison, I'd like for you to, to answer first. What made you decide to come back and say, this is what I'm going to support, as an adult and devote, a lot of time to?
Sure. I mean, I think it really did happen naturally as, I came back as a parent and re-engaged with everything that they were doing inside the walls of the museum. And they also do a great job of communicating everything that they're doing outside. And I think, when you do become a parent and you appreciate, again, how enormous our city is and how much it has changed since we have grown up. I mean, it's huge. And, the population of first generation children that are in the museum and getting these opportunities that are just so enriching. And I think so I brought my kids to the museum as guests, and then slowly kind of started participating in the more philanthropic parts of the museum that, between the luncheon and the gala. And then the previous co-chairs last year had Whitney and I helping in the underwriting portion of it. And so really threw us fully into the process and, could appreciate everything that that goes into this event amongst others that the museum does every year. And they have a fantastic lean team. So it's pretty incredible seeing firsthand what they can accomplish each year.
Absolutely. And yes, we need to give a shout out to your wonderful communications lead, Henry Yao. If every organization had one of him, there's no telling how amazing the world would be. He really is truly the best there is. And Whitney, I like to hear how your path back to the museum as an adult, from a child, and how you wound up getting back, going back to the museum regularly and getting involved with it.
Well, I think, especially referring to that right brain side, I was always a very sort of imaginative kid, and I have such great memories of those really immersive experiences where, you're pretending you're a veterinarian or you're checking people out at the grocery store. It just really was a special place for me. And so when I moved back to Houston, I was living on the East Coast, moved back when my oldest was 8 months. And we started going right when we moved back. They have, the Tot Spot, which is a great free and open softscape play area for kids. And, it was just a great place when he was learning to toddle around and I didn't know what I was doing, for him to be safe and to play and to meet other kids. And so that's kind of what started going back. And then it's just a very nostalgic place for me and for my family. And so watching my boys grow up, they are now 7 and 4, and getting to engage in different pieces of the museum was just so special. And then when you're there and you're watching children from all walks of life really light up and again like have that special safe place. I mean, every child really deserves that. And so that's what sort of got me going back is my own children. And then as I started to get more involved and learn more, I really didn't know about all the community outreach. I know Allison and I keep mentioning that because the campus is so amazing, and we're so grateful that it's here, but they also have community programming at over 430 different locations. And I think they serve over a million or 1.3 million throughout the city. And so when I learned about that and how the museum is, creating this amazing hub, but then also going out and helping children who, kids they're on they can't get there by themselves, and so by meeting them where they are, whether that's in their home or their libraries or the YMCA's, I just think it's kids really deserve a shot. And so the fact that the museum helps to serve that mission, it just makes me so passionate about it.
Absolutely. And, I'm glad you brought that up. And I think it's organizations like the Children's Museum is to why I think Houston is such a dynamic place. I mean, it truly is one of the most dynamic cities I've ever been in. The amount of just culture that is there and the fact that there are organizations like CMH that actually bring it to everyone, regardless of their income level. And the fact that you can serve 1 million people a year really is just, is just astounding. And I know that we're here to talk about the gala today. And Allison, you brought up something about how the two of you were doing underwriting last year, for when Katie and Holly were chairing it last year. So talk about, how being involved with the organization has helped the two of you prepare for this moment.
I mean, absolutely. I think being on the inside last year of the planning of the gala, you really really appreciate what a well-oiled machine it was. Like you've said, this is a gala that's been going on for years, and they really have such a depth of support from the Houston community, and such a supportive board. And so I think that, going through that process and also seeing how fun it was, helping Holly and Katie, translate their vision really made us excited to have the opportunity to do it ourselves the next year. But the support that is so broad and deep for this one evening a year is incredible. And, people show up year after year and they look forward to this event. And so we knew that they were setting us up for success, and we just also wanted to be a part of it. So.
Fantastic. And Whitney, I want to ask you a slightly different spin on that question. And that is, how were the two of you approached to chair? Because I know Holly and Katie, like you two, have been long-term friends for many, many years. So how were you all approached, and what made you say, yes, I'm going to devote? Because anyone who chairs something when it's successful and it raises $1 million like this organization does, it's a lot of time. So what made you say yes to wanting to participate and be a chair this year?
Well, I think, as Allison mentioned, being involved in underwriting last year, we got to kind of peek behind the curtain and see, I have attended the event before, and it's always one that people are really excited about. But I learned more about the museum and about the work that they do. And that is really what made me even more passionate. And you have to have that passion, I think, in order to dedicate the time, because, Allison has 3 kids. I have 2. We both are working moms. We both have a lot of different commitments pulling us in different directions. But when you really, really care about something, and, I think we really deeply care about the children of Houston and making sure that everybody gets a shot at, learning and feeling safe and having a fun environment. It's really kind of a no-brainer. If we can give back to the community that I feel like the Children's Museum of Houston has given me so much, that, how could we say no to wanting to help further that mission, and also just tell the story of all the great things that they're doing.
That's fantastic. And Allison, I want to go back to something, that you were saying about it being a very popular event that people, will go to repeatedly and go many times over the years. So what is one thing that a person or an organization can do to really create that strong, devoted following for its annual gala or signature fundraising event?
I mean, obviously, as Whitney mentioned, kind of the core issue at hand is one that, has touched all of our lives. And, we want to support children in Houston and their education and enrichment. But on another note, I think the Children's Museum Gala has a reputation of being a fun event. It's one that people want to go to every year. It's, a fabulous theme. They go all out, and everyone's going to have a great time, but and supporting an incredible cause. And so once that reputation has been set, and people put a lot of effort, time, it's not something that is phoned in. It's a full kind of experiential evening. It becomes something that people that have gone, they're like, that is on my annual list, and people that hear about it want to go the next year. And so we've had, in the past, they've had to go to the second floor just because it's overflowing with tables, which is a great problem to have. So I think it's something that people just, they have it in their mind of minds. Every October, that's, I'm there regardless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Whitney, I'd love your take on, what's something a person or an organization can do to really create that strong following for its event.
I think certainly the legacy of the Children's Museum Gala is nothing that, is long preceding Allison and I getting involved. But I do think the fact that they've chosen chairs who are very passionate over the years and who really want to create a special kind of user experience, and something that's a little, it's not a stuffy gala. Everyone's really, I think the cause has a huge deal, just because people, I would say the majority of the people that attend have children who go to the museum. And so they know that it's a special place for them. But I think, also creating or choosing chairs who are really passionate about the theme and really the fanfare around it and how they can make it more of this like immersive experience has created this sort of like cachet and excitement around, you know, how are people going to interpret the theme and what's everybody going to wear? And, you know, people start planning their outfits or their costumes far in advance, and are excited to just kind of see each other and see how everybody interpreted the theme and have a great night.
Now, I'm glad you brought up that theme. So, you know, for anyone who is not familiar, and Whitney, I'll let you go first, and then Allison, I'll let you chime in. So talk about how you all created this year's theme and what a Noir ball means for anyone who may not be familiar with the term.
So we, with our husbands, had a very long brainstorming list. So Allison's husband, Yvonne, and my husband, Ryan, are both very fun, creative gentlemen who love a good theme. And so we got together and we each brought our own lists. I mean, it was a long process. We had to pare down the lists. We voted on, you know, top 4, then top 3, then top, and we wanted to do something different. This year, the gala is quite close to Halloween. So we did want to try and kind of play on that aspect. And I kind of want to let Allison talk about the Noir ball because it was really, I think, the brainchild of her and Yvonne. But I'll say that with Halloween being so close, we wanted to have sort of a dark elegance theme. So something that wasn't, you know, your typical Halloween theme, but something that would be very kind of imaginative and dark and sort of elegant. So I'll let Allison kind of take that because I think it was really her and Yvonne that are the brainchild behind it.
I'm trying to think, yeah, what the inception of it and where it went, but you're right. I mean, you know, it's so close to Halloween, and you know, when you come up with a theme for a gala, you have to think of all types of people, and you know, some people love to dress up and go all the way, and some people would rather, you know, phone it in with a tux, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so, making something that you know, could work for all, we decided on this. It's Noir ball, but kind of black, dark, kind of, I mean, Whitney and I use the word gothic a little bit, but something that's kind of mysterious, but you can, you know, go all the way and go vampiric with it, or kind of be lighter and just more Halloween. But again, you know, appealing to people that want to wear like a black dress and be perfectly appropriate, and those that want to, you know, have maybe a little bit of fake blood dripping down their cheek. But I think, you know, there's also all these kind of romantic-y, fantasy series going around now, the books that are really popular and people are getting into. And I think part of that, like, kind of came into play when I was thinking of this theme. And so anyway, I think it'll be really fun. It's definitely a turn from kind of the disco of Studio 54, the casino. That's a lot of gold and sequins, and kind of taking it. In several years ago, they did a Day of the Dead ball as well, a gala as well, and you know, I think we're kind of turning back to that, a little more Halloween, and you know, I think it'll be fabulous. However,
I think
to interpret it,
very like candelabra, velvet, sort of rouge, black lace. So I'm thinking it'll be sort of like dark Victorian. But again, as Allison mentioned, like you can take it however you want, which is, I think, part of the fun. And we've created mood boards for people and Pinterest pages because, you know, to some it may not be so obvious. So we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable and excited to participate.
Absolutely. And what I appreciate about, you know, about both your answers is the fact that in any children's museum ball I've ever gone to, it's incredibly welcoming, whether you are in costume for that theme or you go more classic. And that's, you know, and I think Noir theme's perfect for that because, you know, people may hear Noir and think film noir, especially if they're right-brained, and they may go as like a classic Hollywood movie star. So I love that you all really think thoughtfully through. And that actually leads me into my next question. So Whitney, you kind of were chiming in on this at the beginning of the last response. So I'll let you start. But what is the secret to having, especially because each of you are sharing this with your husbands, what is the secret to having all the chairs be synergistic, get along well, mesh well? Because I've been to events where I know the chairs haven't gotten along and you see it. So what is the secret to creating that great synergy between everybody so that it oozes out of the room from the second guests walk in?
I think making sure that there is that chemistry between not just the chairs, but also the entire kind of committee and board is really important, because you want people who have fun working together. And I think that then that sort of bleeds through to the entire event. And so I think making sure that when, whether it's the organization or if it's a chair who's going to choose whomever they're going to work with, making sure that you really like to be around that person and talk to that person. I think, Allison and I are lucky in that we are talking to each other 20 times a day anyways. And so this just gives us one more reason. And, the fact that our families get along and have known each other for so long, it's really fun. So it doesn't even feel like a commitment or work. It just seems like we're planning a really great party that's for a good cause together. So I just think making sure that the chemistry is there and that the committee really likes one another, because they need to work together and create something really special. And so if you're kind of having to force that, it's going to be really challenging.
Absolutely. And Allison, would you like to add anything to that?
I mean, I wish I could come up with the secret of success of Whitney and I being besties since we were like 12. But it is so easy for us to be together. And I think even like she mentioned, within the committee, we love each of our committee chairs, but in creating pairs with them. So the underwriting chairs kind of pairing together, and the gala chairs, making sure there's a lot of synergy in each of those pairs and those, but then the whole group together. But I think having those pairs really all be like-minded and goal focused, that, really helps, obviously. And, trusting each other. I trust Whitney's ideas and vision and how they'll translate, and vice versa. So I think, trust certainly with vision and commitment is obviously key.
Absolutely. And success.
Although
Oh, go
Allison
ahead.
and I have known each other for an eternity, we haven't known a lot of the committee for very long. So I don't think that it means you have to be, lifelong friends with everybody to make it work. But as Allison said, I mean, being like-minded, having the same goal, being good communicators, and making sure that like the vision is there from the outset is really important. So it doesn't mean you have to know each other for 30 plus years, but it does mean that you need to have, again, that chemistry. And so, when we chose our committee, we really chose people who we knew would be motivated, who cared about the cause, and just thought about people's skill sets, and then thought about along well, and paired them in that way.
That I'm glad that you all are bringing up the committee, and that was actually going to be my next question regardless. So I'd love to dive a little bit more deeply into that. So, success begets success, and, having a strong committee helps, and you all were on the committee before you chaired. So talk about, and Allison, we'll start with you because I know you had brought it up pretty early on in the conversation here today. Tell us how it helps you, a successful committee, carry out your vision for what you want for the event.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we all have our spheres of responsibility, if you will. And as much as Whitney and I would love to say that just the creative and, planning the party is, our main responsibility, we are obviously the overarching kind of responsible for the work that's done by the other chairs. But in terms of selecting an underwriting committee, I mean, making sure that, that's a tough job, but it's also can be an easy job when you're asking for an organization like the Children's Museum. But making sure that those two people feel connected to the museum already and passionate about the message. And the two that we have are amazing at that. And then in terms of our auction committee, again, passionate supporters of the museum who also really get, what we're trying to do with the auction and understand our attendees of the event over long periods of time to really understand the audience that attends the gala, and what they would like to bid on. So, you could fill a room with, I don't know, like golf trips only, and, that might not really have the broad appeal. So I think, and then also building our host committee of, our friends and supporters of this event over the years, who we know that we could give them the most obscure theme and they would be in it to win it. They would go all out. they'd be there with bells on early and tell all their friends about it. So, just the most fun group of committed friends and family members is totally key on the host committee, and just people that are going to spread the message. Yeah, I think we've built a really great team.
That's fantastic. And you brought up something, and Whitney, I'll let you field the next question, even though Allison brought it up, is your auction committee. So I will tell you, I go to lots and lots and lots of different things in Texas. And each year I am always dazzled, not just by the live auction, but also the silent auction. There are very, very few organizations that can do both really, really successfully every single year. And CMH is really one of those organizations. So what advice would you give to somebody looking to create a successful auction for their gala or signature fundraising event?
Allison kind of touched on it, but I really think being thoughtful about the items that you are putting together, the packages that you're putting together, and thinking about the users and the personas that are coming to the gala and what they may want, what would help them, what are also some things that they're already going to be doing, and so they can participate in the auction because that they're going to be going to fitness classes or taking part in beauty treatments. What are things that people use, and this allows them to continue to do those things, but to do so in a way that is then charitable. So really thinking through what is meaningful to people, or where are there splurges that people may not want to partake in on or just on their own, but if they do it for charity, then it's like, this is a win-win for everybody. So making sure that it's quality over quantity, I think, is really important too. Not just trying to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, but to really curate an auction helps save the auction committee time too, so that they're really thinking through what are the use cases for these items, how is it going to be received by the people who attend, and thinking through that, I think, just makes the time and effort more meaningful, both for the committee and for the people who are going to be bidding on the items.
I'm really glad you brought that up because, and a lot of organizations struggle with this. Like, an organization wants to give to me, I have to take it. And the thing is that guests need to have a good experience. So you need to understand your audience and what's going to work. And not every item is going to work for every single guest. So I'm really glad you brought that up, that it's okay to put guidelines, we'll call them for lack of a better term, on what would be successful for that room. Because the last thing you want is someone to donate, no one bids on it, and then they're upset with you, and then your reputation spreads around town that, I donated this $1,000 item and no one bid on it, but it wasn't the right room in the right space. So I really appreciate you bringing it up, because that is something most nonprofits struggle with, especially with live auctions.
The other thing that I think we can do, and that, Allison and I are both meticulous about, is like looking back and seeing, what items were most successful, what items maybe didn't land as well, and then trying to kind of learn from that. What is always successful, and also talking to the organization. So obviously the team at the museum has been more deeply involved in the gala for many years. And so really kind of looking back, and luckily they're great about saving information that we can look back on and say, okay, these types of tables did great. These types of auction items did great. And really just trying to learn from the past and accelerate that into the future is something that I think any organization can do to really just make sure that you're looking at that data set and trying to improve upon it.
And Allison, I think you wanted to add something.
Oh yeah, I was going to add just, we are millennials technically, kind of on the cusp, but I think a large portion of the attendees are also fit in this millennial category, and we're very experiential type generation. And so we're looking for exciting trips and, exciting experiences in Houston and away from Houston. And I think, there's so many generous people that can offer, these experiences, but the way that you package them is super important. And as Whitney was saying, there's ways you can tweak a trip that could be more appealing as a family vacation, or it could be for a couples trip doing spa and golf. And so looking back and kind of, if you're asking from someone who is so generous, packaging in that, and that's kind of our job, is to package it and merchandise it in kind of the most appealing way too. So you start with the base gift and then package it the way that you think it will garner the most attention.
Fantastic. And you mentioned earlier, and speaking of the word package, so The gala is in the Corinthian, which as a packet, it's just one of the most beautiful, beautiful spaces. And I know you had talked earlier about years where it sells really well. You've got, tables up on the second floor, but it is just this really majestic space. How do you think having the gala in a space like the Corinthian helps you all really create excitement for the gala? Because the CMH gala, it's one of the few that's held in the same space every year, and it's dazzling every year, which is really hard to do. So how do you all do that as a team?
I think it's, as you said, I mean, it's a really majestic space. It's a very grand space. And so you really have such a special sense of arrival that just never gets old, quite honestly. And it's also a really malleable space in how you can dress it up. There are a lot of really great opportunities, whether it's from, the balcony looking down or the beautiful columns, lighting. I think there's ways that you can make it feel so different, even though it's still going to be that grand, double-heighted ceiling space. And so it's exciting to come back to such a grand space every year. It feels really special. And then it's exciting to also see how it's transformed every year. So I think, we're so grateful that the Corinthian is so generous in working with the museum year after year. And I think that having a really special setting makes all the difference in the world, because when you have a space that people feel really excited to be in or excited to go to, it's just much more magnetic for the event as a whole.
Absolutely. And Allison, what do you have to add?
Oh, I mean, I totally agree that, the Corinthian, it's so dramatic in just its bones. And so, it doesn't take too much to really take it over the top. And, I'm so grateful for having the Corinthian as our base space, because other events have to take kind of like a white or paneled box and spend a lot of that budget to overhaul it, if you will, and try to transform people into a new setting. But I think the moment that you hit the stairs and look down at the Corinthian, I mean, you're already transported into, you're out of downtown and you're in a really special high drama space. And so, I think, it's just such a gift that we're able to use that as our backdrop and just kind of, paint a little bit.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question about Allison. So you were talking about, walking in. So like when you walk into the Corinthian, it's all this marble and there's this red carpet. You literally feel like you're like walking into the Met Gala or something. It's really that beautiful. So when guests walk up that red carpet, up those beautiful marble stairs and enter, tell us what guests can expect to experience at this year's Noir Ball.
I think for those who have attended regularly, I think, you get to the top of those steps and there's kind of the surprise. There's the photo opportunity is right there. And you get an immediate feel for what that theme is going to be in just that small space, up and down the stairs, that little landing. And so, I think we'll have, to our noir theme, some maybe creepy, not creepy,
We'll have some spooky scenes.
Some spooky greeters and some special drinks and some special music and I think you'll get the full picture right there, and then the photo opportunity is right there. So everyone's looking great. The hair and makeup is the best it's going to be all night, and you get that picture taken there, and then you're going to start perusing the silent auction and hit the bar as well.
Fantastic. And Whitney, talk a little bit about some of the things that happen, kind of after you're in there and the grandness and kind of some other things that people can expect throughout the evening.
I think that it'll be hauntingly fabulous. I think that we will have lots of spooky surprises. Something that we're excited about is that we've added on a black glove sparkler champagne surprise. So that's something that you can add on to your table or you could purchase the night of. So you'll have a sort of ceremonious presentation with sparklers and fanfare of a beautiful bottle of champagne to your table, which I think will be really exciting and is another great way to just kind of liven the mood and have some surprises. But I think, what we're really trying to do is add elements of surprise and delight throughout the entire evening. So I don't want to give too much away, but I can say that there will be lots of twists and turns that'll be really exciting throughout the evening.
Well, that's with any Halloween themed event. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to, experience it, if the event this year. I know it will be absolutely fantastic. So, and I know we're coming up on time, but I want to ask each of you one more question before we go. And I'll let Whitney go first, and then and then Allison, you can follow up. What is a piece of advice you would give to somebody looking to chair their first nonprofit gala?
I would say to make sure that you truly love and care about whatever the organization is that you would like to work with. Be selective in what you choose to get involved in, because I think that passion really makes a big difference in the dedication and the time and the care that you put into it. It's not a small commitment, but I think that when you care about it, as we've said before, it really just becomes second nature and something that you're constantly thinking about because it's fun and exciting, and you know that it's going to help and support something that you care about.
Fantastic. And Allison, what's your answer to that question?
I mean, I think, I obviously agree with exactly what Whitney said, but also, the quality over quantity. I mean, I think knowing the audience and where you're going to appeal and making it the most special event for, what you believe you can actually achieve, instead of just trying to throw everything against the wall and see what comes back, because that just doesn't end up feeling like a very cohesive and special event. And I think, over time, you're going to grow that core slowly, maybe more quickly, but starting where it is achievable and you're going to be successful both for yourself and for the organization, and then you'll grow from there. But starting what is most achievable.
That perfect mic drop answer. And this is going to be, I know this is going to be a fantastic event, as it always is. And Whitney, Allison, thank you so much for joining us today. You both gave such wonderful insights, and we were just thrilled to have you on.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. And the 2024 Children's Museum Houston Noir Ball will be held on October 26, 2024 at the Corinthian in Houston, Texas. For more information, please visit cmhouston.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.